Hello, my name is Preston Barrett, and today I'm going to be talking about different types of remote controllers, their applications, and how they work. Most people use remote controllers daily because they add a lot of convenience to their day-to-day lives. A remote controller is a piece of hardware used to direct or control an electronic device. Now for a little history on remote controllers. The world's first remote controls were radio frequency devices that directed German naval vessels to crash into Allied boats during World War I. In World War II, remote controls detonated bombs for the first time. The end of the Great Wars left scientists with a brilliant technology and nowhere to apply it. 60 years later, some of us spend an hour looking for the remote before we remember there are buttons on the TV. The first remote intended to control a television was developed by Zenith Radio Corporation in 1950. The remote, called Lazy Bones, was connected to the television by a wire. A wireless remote control, called the Flashmatic, was developed in 1955 by Eugene Pauly. It worked by shining a beam of light onto a photoelectric cell, but the cell did not distinguish between light from the remote and light from other sources, causing for devices to respond to unwanted controls. The Flashmatic also had to be pointed very precisely at the receiver in order to work, so its level of convenience was minimal. Thankfully, science has come a long ways over the last 60 years. In today's society, the dominant remote control technology in home theater applications is infrared light. The basic premise at work in an infrared remote control is the use of light to carry signals between a remote control and the device it's directing. Infrared light is in the invisible portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, so it can't be seen by the naked eye. An infrared remote control sends out pulses of infrared light that represent specific binary codes. These binary codes correspond to commands such as power on and off, volume up or down, or changing the channel. The infrared receiver in the TV, stereo, or other device decodes the pulses of light into the binary data that the device's microprocessor can understand. The microprocessor then carries out the corresponding command. Another type of very common remote controller are video game controllers. Video game controllers are designed to fit comfortably in a person's hands for extended periods of time, so they are often wing-shaped, with the buttons conveniently within reach of your fingers. Video game controllers often have multiple buttons and analog sticks. Although each button can be configured to perform a specific and distinctive action, they all work on the same principle. In essence, each button is a switch that completes a circuit when it is pressed. A small metal disc beneath the button is pushed into contact with two strips of conductive material on the circuit board inside the controller. While the metal disc is in contact, it conducts electricity between the two strips. The controller senses that the circuit is closed and sends that data to the gaming console. The computer compares that data with the instructions in the game software for that button and triggers the appropriate response. There is also a metal disc under each arm of the directional pad. If you're playing a game in which pushing down on the directional pad causes the character to crouch, a similar string of connections is made from the time you push down on the pad to when the character crouches. Analog sticks work in a completely different way. Two variable resistors, called potentiometers, are positioned at right angles to each other below the joystick. Current flows constantly through each one, but the amount of current is determined by the amount of resistance. Resistance is increased or decreased based on the position of the joystick. By monitoring the output of each potentiometer, the controller can determine the exact angle at which the joystick is being held and trigger the appropriate response based on that angle. In games that support them, analog features like these allow for amazing control and precision during gameplay. Now we have went over a couple of different types of controllers, some of their applications and how they work. So the next time you pick up a controller to change the channel or play your favorite video game, you will have a little more understanding of the technology that goes into making your life so much more convenient.